Alright guys, welcome back. I am the Crown Clown, and today we are doing What If Deku was Sabertooth. I think this is part 4 that we're on now. So, yeah. This part's going to be a bit longer, because we're going to go from USJ through the sports festival, all the way through the Stain arc. So we're covering 3 arcs in this episode, just because, I really want to. I love this series. I love talking about this series. And yeah, but before we get into things, a quick update on the next 3 what ifs. So I had you guys vote today. Well, it's today at the time of this recording. And, when this goes up, it'll be tomorrow, but hey, whatever. So at the time of this recording, Reptile has 177 votes. Spawn is in second place with 73 votes, and Superman is dead last with a total of 37 votes. So, I hope you guys are going to be excited because honestly, I can't really see Spawn or Superman making a comeback. So it looks like as soon as this series right here wraps up, we'll be going into Sabertooth. I mean, not Sabertooth, but Reptile. Which, super excited to talk about Reptile. And there's going to be a few things in there that I hope you guys are going to enjoy. So, without further ado, let's get into a quick little recap where we last left off with our boy Deku Sabertooth. So, where we last left off, Deku was actually, his team, which was Deku, Kirishima, Asui, and Momo, fought to a tie between Logan, All Might, and Midnight. Those 3. So, yeah, they went to a draw with those 3, and the other team, which was everyone else, they lost. And Bakugo got humiliated. Absolutely humiliated. He pissed his pants, and yeah, he just did not have a good time. And he got called to the office because after that, just seeing Deku gave him so much PTSD that he tried to do another explosion and it hit Deku. Deku didn't retaliate. He just healed himself with his healing factor, and, Logan called Bakugo to the office. And his mom was there, so they were talking about everything Bakugo's done, all his slanderous comments towards Deku being a mutant, all that. And she actually saw Deku, taking his shirt off and saw his muscles. And Deku, he called her out on her staring. And she was just like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stare. And Deku basically just told her, it's all good. You can look, even touch if you want to. And she's like, I'm a married woman. And Deku just looks at her and says, so, I don't care. If you need it, I'll give it to you. And she just says, I think I need to go. So she walks out of the room. But that's on her mind now. All day, that's on her mind. And, Deku, being the absolute lad that he is, just sits down, cracks open a cold one with Logan in there, and they're drinking. And Logan, he's talking to Deku. And he says, you're coming into your own pretty well, kid. And Deku tells him thanks. And Logan, he brings up a team. And Deku's like, yeah, I made a pretty good team with those guys. And Logan says, no, that's not what I mean. And Deku says, what do you mean? Logan hands him a file. And on the file, it says X-Force. And, Deku's looking through. And he sees on the team, it was Logan, it was some guy named Deadpool, a girl named Domino, another girl named X-23, and a guy named Bishop. And, Deku, he's just like, who were these guys? And, Logan tells him, those were my teammates. X-23 was actually my daughter. And Deku asks, what happened to him? And he says, same thing that happened to all the other mutants. They died. Except for Wade. He is still kicking around somewhere. Don't know where though. And Deku says, Wade? Who's Wade? Logan says, Deadpool. That guy was a complete loose cannon, couldn't be controlled for nothing, and had a terrible sense of humor. Always talked to people that weren't even there, And Deku says, you had a clown on your team? And Logan tells him, yeah, not something I'm proud of, but he was a good fighter. He's a mercenary, or used to be. I don't know what happened to him after everything collapsed. I heard he lost his kid. Can't imagine what he's going through. And Deku says, well, do you know where he's at? And Logan tells him, last I heard of him, he was in Canada. Drinking away, I don't know, doing stuff with bears, I don't know. I don't ask. One less headache I have to deal with. Dude was a complete pain in the ass. And, Deku just drinks his beer and says, okay, good enough. And, Deku, he gets out and he goes home. He's changed, and Logan tells him he's going to have to file some paperwork, get cleaned up, and, move the stuff forward for the USJ, in the coming days. Deku says, alright. So, Deku, he's walking out of school, and he sees Kirishima, Asui, and Momo waiting for him. He joins them. He's like, yo, you guys want to go get something to eat? And they're just like, yeah, sure. And they go. They're getting something to eat. And they actually walk into the same restaurant that Bakugo and his mom is at. Bakugo sees the group. Deku sees Bakugo. The group sees Bakugo. Deku sees Bakugo's mom. And he's just like, oh, this is good. This is too good. So, Deku, being, kind of spiteful as he is towards Bakugo, he decides to sit right next to them. The table right next to them. And Kirishima says, yo, are you sure you want to be sitting here? And Deku says, oh, I'm very sure I want to be sitting right here. Bakugo's just keeping his mouth shut. He just drinks his soda and looks out the window. And his mom is looking at Deku, and, she just can't help but kind of stare at him. She still has that image of him shirtless, telling her that she can touch, and that he'd be happy to relieve some stress from her. And that's just going around her mind now, like more than it already was. So she's just like, Katsuki, have you ordered anything? And, I was like, Mom, our food's already here. They're just taking forever to eat. And, she's like, oh, right. And, Deku, he notices this, and he's pretty much thinking, oh, I got this. So he drops, tomorrow he's going to go to the gym since, they're having a day off from school tomorrow. And, Kirishima's like, wait, the principal said we don't have to go into school tomorrow? He's like, no, you should already have a text message. And they check their phones and they're like, yeah, Logan's giving them a day off so he can catch up with paperwork. And they're just like, oh, cool. And he says, see, I told you, the old man's, pretty chill. But then they get another text message, just the four of them. And it's from Logan saying, you four are still needed at school. And Deku's just like, what the hell is this about? And he's texts Logan back, can it be later? And Logan says, yeah, be here by 2. And, they just kind of do a sigh, and they're just like, alright, sweet. And, Bakugo, he checks his phone. He doesn't get the message saying he's still needed there. He kind of feels left out. But he's just thinking that it's some kind of special training or, some kind of celebration for the people who actually drew with the teachers, or a potential rematch. He doesn't know. So, him and his mom, they're just over there, and Deku, he's talking to them about the files he read about, this guy named Deadpool, and that actually piques Bakugo's interest. The guy Deadpool. And Bakugo, he actually, asks, who's Deadpool? And Deku, he decides to let Bakugo in. He says, oh yeah, Logan said he was a good fighter, but a bit of a loose cannon. And had a weird sense of humor. He was a clown, basically. But I saw his outfit. It was basically just all red with black. Very old school style. But he looks at Bakugo and he says, but I'm pretty sure it fit you just right. And Bakugo's, just insulted by that. But he doesn't make a scene. He's already caused enough trouble for his mom, and he doesn't need any more PTSD moments. His mom and him get up and they walk out, and, Deku's just watching. And Bakugo's mom, she winks at him. And Deku just says, alright. So, yeah. Next day rolls around and, Deku's waking up. He still goes to the gym. And while he's there, he sees Bakugo's mom. And he's like, hello there. Looks like you're working hard. And, he kind of just leans up against the treadmill that she's on. And she's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you go to this gym. And, Deku's like, yeah, go here all the time. I've seen you here a couple times, but never really had the chance to talk to you. And he's like, oh, okay. So Deku just jumps on the treadmill next to her. He starts talking to her. And, he makes a remark. He says, it doesn't look like you're getting too much attention at home. And she's just like, what do you mean by that? And Deku says, it's obvious the way your movements are. You're too stiff. You're not relaxed. Like I said, I'm willing to help you with that if you really want. I can give you my number, and we can go from there. And she says, look, I'm not into a relationship with a teenager. And Deku says, look, don't think of me as that. I pretty much have enough experience as a man. And besides, I'm not the same as all these other people. In a relationship, no. I'm just talking about DTF. That's all. And she's like, okay, if that's all you're wanting to do, then I guess so. Like, give me your number. And Deku, he hands her his number, and she gets off the treadmill, and she says, I'll text you later tonight. You better not be too tired. And Deku just looks at her, and he says, trust me, I won't be. And she says, good. She leaves. And Deku's just like, score. And he works out. He lifts his weights. And, during halfway through his workout, Kirishima enters the gym. And he says, hey man, you look like you're getting a good workout in. And, Deku just gets off. His healing factor kicks in with his muscles. And he gets a bit more toned and lean. And, Kirishima says, man, the healing factor's so unfair. You get gains instantly. And Deku says, hey, don't hate me. And, Kirishima's like, nah, I actually just want to work on my hardening. If I could get up to the point where I can be like Colossus, man, that'll be badass. And Deku says, well, you pretty much have the same power. Only difference is Colossus couldn't turn his off. You can. And, Kirishima starts thinking about it. He's like, he must have had a difficult time with women. And Deku says, I don't even want to think about that. And Kirishima says, trust me, I didn't either, but when you said it like that, and Deku's like, okay, changing the subject here. And Kirishima says, yeah, gladly. And they laugh. They work out together. They realize it's getting closer and closer to 2. So they decide to, wrap up. They go to the school. Not in their uniforms, of course, because this is a, non-school type visit. Kirishima, he's in sweatpants, red, and he's got a black t-shirt on, and he's just got some high tops. Deku, he's rocking some low top shoes. He's wearing like some gray sweatpants and a baggy white t-shirt. So he's pretty much just walking in there, and they run into Momo and Asui. And Deku sees Momo. She's just, wearing a skirt and, button-up shirt. And Asui, she's in her jeans and, crop top, and they're walking up there. And Kirishima just says, "So, what were you guys up to?" And Momo says, they were actually just talking about the X-Men that they found out about, and Deku's like, "Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting if you think about it, right?" They agree. So, Kirishima, he asked Deku the big question. "Why do you think we're here?" And, Deku says, "Well, Logan mentioned something about a team. And he handed me a file. And the team name was called the X-Force. They were a covert, espionage team of mutants that handled international missions stealthily and quietly. And at some times, they killed." And Logan said he wanted to bring back a team kind of like that. A covert ops team that would exercise within the law, but have a further reach than just as students. Especially making us like officially unofficial heroes that only operate under certain conditions. And Kirishima says, "Whoa, you think we're actually ready for something like that?" And Deku says, "Man, I hope so." And Asui and Momo says, "Creed's ready for it. Us, that's the problem." Deku, he says, "What? Why am I the only one that's ready for it?" She says, "You took out 2 pro heroes and, basically a third one." And Deku's like, "But I didn't take her out." They all just look at him and they say, "You took her out and you copped a feel." Deku, he's not really into a position where he can argue. He says, "Alright, yeah, you got me. I did that." And, they say, "Mm-hmm." And Momo actually gives him a bit more sass. Deku's confused as to why, but he just chooses to soldier on. And, Kirishima, they get there, and he's the first one in. And, Logan says, "Well, look at Colossus entering the building." And, Kirishima's just like, "You called me Colossus." And they notice that Logan has 4 applications on his desk. And he decides to write them down. And he says, "I heard you wanted to be called Colossus as your hero name. So, I went ahead and wrote it in." And they're just like, "What?" Logan says, "Sit down, shut the door, and shut up." And they do. And he hands Deku the, paperwork. He says, "All you need to do is sign." And Deku's reading over it. It says, "Hero name, Sabertooth. Full name, Izuku Creed. Height, 5'10". Hair color, blonde. Eye color, amber." And he's just like, "Okay. So, what is this?" And Logan says, "Keep reading." And it says, "Covert Task Force called X-Force Authorization." And he's just like, "Wait, you're for real?" And Logan says, "Yeah. If you guys fill out these applications and you sign, all I have to do is bring them to the Hero Agency. They'll approve it on the spot. You'll be considered actual heroes. You still have to go to school to pass high school, but you won't need provisional hero licenses. You'll automatically have them right then and there on the spot. And actually, it won't be provisional. They'll be full authorization hero cards. However, it'll only be on the condition that you go on missions signed off by me." And they're just like, so what? You would be, and, Logan says, I'm your handler. I tell you what to do, you do it. And that could mean going undercover, going out late at night, or assassination missions. Heroes deal with a variety, and you won't always be on the bright side of the law. Sometimes you have to work within the shadows of it to get the right things done at the right time. There's a lot of villains starting to pop up and get active. I'd rather get on the, high end of things before an incident was to occur. Having you four, the most qualified of your years, access to this, it'll make you that much stronger. And, Deku, he's just like, alright, I'll sign. He signs it. Kirishima, he doesn't even think about it. He fills out the form and he hands it over. And he says, call me Colossus. And, Asui, she fills out hers and she says, okay, call me Froppy. And, Logan says, I've been going over your file, Asui. And she says, just call me Sue. And he says, alright, Sue, whatever. Anyway, there's a file I want you to read. It's someone who is a villain. He was part of the Brotherhood of Mutants. And it was a terrorist organization. However, his powers are actually very similar to yours. Wouldn't surprise me if you weren't related to him in some way, shape, or form. And Asui, she's actually kind of surprised by this. And he hands over the file and he says he's already translated it. The kid's name was Toad. And she starts reading it and she says, yeah, this is a lot like my powers. And he says, read the applications he used it for. I want you to become more like that, but enhance him. Get better than he was. Because, let's face it, kid was sloppy. It got him killed. However, he was fairly old when he got killed. He was in his 30s. So, I can't imagine that he didn't have a kid. That creep. I don't know. He was always hanging around some girls. And Asui gets a chill down her spine. She's like, I hope I'm not going to end up like him. And, Kirishima says, no way, I won't let you. And, Deku says, is that because you like her? And Kirishima, gets red in the face and he just says, shut up. And Logan says, well, that's not very manly. Colossus would have owned up to it. And that gets Kirishima right where it hurts. And he says, fine, yes, I do like her. And Asui's just like, oh, okay. And Deku's just saying, this team is going to go to hell. And, Kirishima's like, no, it won't. And Asui says, I won't let it. And Momo, she's actually the one who hasn't filled out the form yet. She's actually trying to think, like, what could her hero name be? What would be a good one that would fit her? I mean, is she even worthy? That's all that she's thinking about right now. So Logan actually says, look, you're worthy of it. Just by sparring with Midnight, I could tell you have real potential. You're gonna go far. Midnight's the one that actually recommended you. And Momo's like, what? She recommended me? And Logan says, yeah, don't believe her? Don't believe me. Ask her yourself. And no, he motions for Midnight to come in. She does. And, Midnight gets on her level, positioning herself on the side closer to Deku. And Deku's just like, okay. Logan shoots a glare at Deku, and Deku just throws his hands up, saying, fine, won't touch it. I'll back off. And, Logan relaxes a bit. And Midnight tells her, look, you have an amazing quirk. If you're on this task force, they'll have everything they need. You can be their anchor. You can be the medic. You can be the one to help them if it comes down to a life or death situation. I know that these guys are your friends. Your quirk can help keep them alive. Don't you want that?" And Momo says, "Yes, I want that. More than anything." So she agrees. She starts filling out the application, and she puts down for her hero name Creatai, which her canon one. Probably butchered it, but oh well. And Logan, he says, "Alright, come with me." So he takes the applications and he tells them all, once we enter this building, there's no going back. If you guys have any reservations about this, now's the time to say it. They don't. There's no objections. And Deku asks him, "Is this all that's going to be us, or can we add a couple more members later on?" Logan says, "I don't want more than 6 of you guys, but I already have an eye on someone. He's in the support course. He's actually got a pretty good quirk. He can, kinda take the path of your telepath, but he's not that type of guy yet." And, Deku's just like, "Who is he?" And Logan says, "You'll see. I assure you, you'll see." So they enter the hero agency, like the overhaul of them all, and they observe Deku, and they're observing him the most because they think he's the only one qualified. They see his muscle build, they read his file, they know he's Sabertooth's son, and they see the hero name he chose was Sabertooth. So they decide to kind of test him a little bit. They say, "Creed, is that you?" And Deku steps forward and says, "Izuku Creed, reporting for duty." And they're astonished. There's no feedback on the name Creed. And they say, "At ease, Sabertooth." And Deku just steps back and he says, "Understood." They're surprised with how good of a handle he's gotten on the Creed and Sabertooth name. And that impresses them. That even impresses Logan. He thought the kid would have sure blew a gasket at just the mention of Creed or Sabertooth. But then again, he did want to be Sabertooth. Understanding the name and, taking ownership of his last name comes with the mantle. He's happy to see that Deku finally understood that and grasped it. And, they ask for everybody else and they all step up, and then they get to Kirishima and they see the name Colossus. And they're just like, "So, we're getting a new Colossus." And Kirishima says, "I'll do my best to live up to that name." And they say, "Well, he was a Russian, but he was strong, admirable, and overall, from what his files and videos suggest." And Kirishima's like, "Wait, you guys have videos of him? Of how he fought?" And they're just like, "Yes, it's very old footage, hardly playable, but still works." And Kirishima asks if he could watch it. They allow him to, since he is now Colossus. And they basically tell him, "Yeah, it's going to take us a little bit to get your licenses printed out and up to date and verified. You guys aren't leaving until you get those licenses." And so Deku just says, "Okay, where do we wait?" They say, "Well, Logan needs to come with us, but you 4 can wait over here in this room. We'll bring the tapes of the X-Men that we have. We'll even bring tapes of when Sabertooth fought alongside them." And Deku's just like, "You guys have tapes of Sabertooth?" And they say yes. And, Deku is interested. He says, "Okay." So, while they're getting their licenses, and, Kirishima's watching all of Colossus's videos, and he is impressed. He's just like, "This dude's more manly than I thought. He'd never back down. He didn't even flinch." And then he sees him dodging, counterattacking. He's like, "Wait a minute, that's not very manly." And, Deku just glares at him and he says, "What, are you kidding? Yeah, that's manly." And Kirishima's like, no, you should be able to just take everything head on. And Deku's like, what, are you dumb? If you just take everything head on, that just means you're predictable. Nothing manly about it, that's just suicidal. And Kirishima's like, you sure about that? I mean, isn't it pretty cool? All Deku says is, it's cool, alright, if you want to be a martyr. Kirishima kind of just is hurt by those words, but deep down, he knows it's true. He needs to change his fighting style. He needs to be able to be the one who can dodge and counter, not the one who just takes all the hits. But he needs to be able to take the hit if he, has to save someone. That's where he's developing his new moral code, and, he decides to wash all the red dye out of his hair and let his hair sit back down. He's going back to his black hair. He doesn't need to pretend to be, Crimson Riot anymore. He's got a new role model. He has a new name. He has Colossus to look up to. And even though he knows his past, and he knows that Mina's gonna tear him a new one for this, but he doesn't care. He's a pro hero now. He's a nighttime, espionage hero. He's Colossus. He won't be Red Riot, he won't be Crimson Riot. And he's gonna do his best to protect his new team. He's X-Force now. He better start acting like it. And Deku's watching Sabertooth, and he's just like, old man, as much as I hate you, I have to admit, your fighting style is a lot better than mine. You were cleaner, more precise, more animalistic, yet you were quicker. You were nimbler, more agile. You don't have as much pausing, stopping. You're very fluid. That's where I need to evolve to. That's what I need to be. Because until then, there's no way I could ever beat you. And one of the girls says, hey, this one has a video on Deadpool. And they pop it in, and they see Deadpool's craziness, all of his, wacky, goofy shit, and he's just like, this is retarded. They turn it off. And as soon as they get done with that, their licenses are there. They're handed their licenses, and, they're just like, badass. So they go home for the rest of the day. But before Deku gets home, he gets a phone call. He looks at it, he answers. He says, I've been waiting. And she says, I'm ready. Come to this address. He says, I'll be right there. So he hangs up the phone. Logan already knows. He says, go on, have your fun. Just remember, one rule I have. And, Deku says, okay, what's the one rule? He, puts his hand on Deku's shoulder and he says, don't ever, and I mean ever, put your dick in crazy. And Deku says, words to live by, uncle. Peace. So he heads on to the hotel room. He gets there, and, they ask to see some identification before he enters, because it's supposedly only for, adults. Deku shows them his pro hero card. They don't even look at the age. They see pro hero, they're like, okay, Mr. Sabertooth, in you go. Deku's just like, this pro hero stuff is actually going to be pretty useful. So he goes in there. He gets up there to the room, and she says, well, I didn't think you'd enter. And he says, well, I'm a pro hero. And she's like, oh, so you entered the big shots. Won't be going to UA anymore? He says, no, I still got to finish high school. But I don't need a hero, certification exam anymore. Besides, I just got put on a team, so I'm pretty good. And she says, oh well, let's cut the small talk and skip to the foreplay. Deku takes off his shirt and he says, gladly. Now, this, for the next few minutes is going to be 18 plus. So, yeah, bye-bye monetization. Oh well. Like I said, I always have to throw an 18 plus episode in there somewhere. So, this is it. Let's get to it. As Deku, he's right there, and he starts caressing up Baku's mom's, thighs to her inner thigh. He starts rubbing her. She's enjoying it. She's enjoying being treated like a woman for once in a long time. And she starts letting out little moans. Deku, he catches on to this. He starts teasing her a little bit, getting closer and closer to her pussy, but not quite touching it. As, she's just like, stop teasing. And Deku says, no, I make the rules. You're gonna follow them. And she's like, assertive. And, Deku, he says, yes, I'm not like the other men you've been with. I'm one of a kind. I know what I want. And right now, I'm gonna take it. As he pushes her onto the bed, locks her in the handcuffs onto the handrails, and he starts, kissing her inner thigh all the way up to her stomach, all the way up to her breast. He tears the bra off, getting, pretty, well adjusted to it. And he starts sucking on her tits, and she's starting to moan a little bit. She's wanting to move her hands, but she can't. She's handcuffed. And she's just like, kind of embarrassed, but Deku says, none of that embarrassment shit. You're a woman, right? It's time you finally feel like it. He takes off his pants and he says, enough foreplay. Let's get right down to it. He grabs her legs. He lifts it a little bit up in the air. He's on his knees on the bed. He puts his dick in her and, he starts, just going to town on her. She's screaming out in pleasure. Everyone can hear her for like a few rooms over. And she's just like, oh God. And Deku's just like, yeah, after all, part Canadian. And she's just like, that's supposed to mean something. I was like, no, just always wanted to say it. She's like, shut up. So, alright. So he's, just handling his shit. Like, she's in pleasure. She's moaning, screaming. He's, flips her over. And, he just breaks the handcuffs that's on her. He has her suck him off. And, he bends her over, doing doggy style 69. Has her ride him. That goes on for a few hours. And she's pretty much exhausted at this point. Deku's not. The healing factor is going crazy right now. And he's finally getting to the point after 3 hours where he's done. And Bakugo's mom, like, her eyes are rolled back, her tongue's out, ahegao style. She's just ruined. And, he pulls out, he gets dressed, and he says, call me again if you ever need a real man, as he leaves the room. And he goes back home. And he tells Logan about what happened. Logan's just like, damn kid, your healing factor is better than mine. And, he just tells him, hey, gotta do what you gotta do. And he just says, yeah, that's true, have a beer. He drinks, and, they can't get drunk. So they easily go through like 6 cases. And Deku wakes up the next morning for school. He's feeling really good. And it's time for them to go to the USJ. So they get in there, and Deku's new suit actually came in. And that is the suit that you're seeing on the thumbnail, which we'll be playing all throughout this video. But yeah, that's his new outfit. And he digs it. He's just like, so, this is supposed to represent Sabertooth and you? And he's like, the black's for me, yellow's for Creed. And he's like, I dig it. He puts it on, and he gets on the bus. And Aizawa, he takes them to the USJ. Logan stays behind to do his principal duties. And, they get there. Deku's smelling something off. He doesn't really say anything about it, though. But once they get in there, the smell's different. There's too many scents in there. And he says, there's something wrong in here. And 13 says, I assure you, nobody's here. And, Deku says, don't play that shit with me. There's someone in here. A lot of them. There's too many scents. 13, she has to remember who she's talking to. She's talking to Sabertooth. His sense of smell is off the charts. And he yells, I know you're here. Come on out. As he sees villains coming out of the woodworks. As Shigaraki, Nomu, and Kurogiri get in there, he looks at them. And he snarls. And, Shigaraki looks at him and he's like, we know how to handle you. You won't be a problem at all. And Deku demands to know why he says that. But just then, he hears a high-pitched sound that starts to drive him crazy. It's bringing out his more animalistic side. As he snarls and he yells at everybody to get away from him, he's losing control. His claws are popped as he's, yelling at them to get back. Now! And then his eyes go white. He's snarling. He's in berserker rage. And anyone near him, he lashes out towards them. And, they all start dispersing, but Aizawa tells Ida, run back there. Get help. Now. We need Logan. He's the only one that can calm Creed down right now. As Ida, jets off, Kirishima stands right there in front of Deku. And he tells him, I'm not going to let you hurt anybody. I'll fight you here and now. And Deku can't say anything back. He's just growling. And Kirishima goes into hardening as much as he can. He rushes at Deku. Deku, does a swipe towards him. He cuts through Kirishima's hardening and scratches him across the chest, leaving a permanent scar. As Kirishima screams out in pain, Aizawa kicks Deku in the face all the way down the stairs, into the villains. As the villains think that he's on their side, he starts tearing into them, killing them one by one. And they're all just super scared. All of the class, Kurogiri hadn't had the chance to warp gate them. They're all still there. Deku's gone berserk. Shigaraki's like, what's the meaning of this? And Kurogiri tells him it seems like his berserker mode is used on friends and foes alike. Anyone that's near him, he'll kill. We need to get out of here, Shigaraki. As Shigaraki tells him, please, I can just disintegrate him right here and now. As he goes to touch him, he realizes he gets as far down as the skeleton, and then it just heals itself right back. It's healing faster than he can decay. And once it heals, the decay's gone. He has to retouch Deku. And, he's like, what is this freak? As Deku slashes Shigaraki across the arm and tears his tendons. He cannot use his arm anymore. He slashes across his leg as Shigaraki screams out in pain as Deku finishes Shigaraki off, impaling him through the stomach with his claws, killing him. The Nomu, without a master, is mindless. It just starts attacking everyone at random. Kurogiri takes Shigaraki's dead body back to One for All. Well, not One for All for One. And he just pretty much says, we bit off more than we could chew here. Deku continues going around killing anyone that he gets his hands on. Meaning, by the time Logan gets there, the only two people left still fighting is Deku and Nomu. All the other villains have been killed. And he's horrified. He sees him and he's like, what's wrong? What happened? And, Aizawa says, we don't know. Suddenly he just started screaming, get away. His claws popped, his eyes went out, and he just started snarling and growling. Wolverine knows. It's Berserker. He says, that's Berserker Rage. The kid's gone feral. And there's like, what? He says, someone set him off. Someone drew out his more animalistic instincts. That's what happens. You lose all sense of control. You're deadlier. You know all your fighting skills, but you can't tell friend from foe. And they're just like, that's insane. And Bakugo says, well, how are we going to stop him? And, Logan says, first we need to find out who set him off. And it's just like, well, that's kind of hard considering all of them are dead. Logan can smell something familiar. Someone he hasn't smelled in years. And he yells, come out, Wade, as Deadpool emerges. And he says, oh, hey, Wolvie, how's it going? That little feral thing was meant for you, not the kid, but he's been doing such a great job, I just had to let him have his fun. And Wolverine just impales Deadpool through the stomach and rips his throat out as he says, the hell are you doing? As Deadpool, regenerates his throat, he says, if you want me to answer, going for the throat's not a great way. And, he says, well, if you really must know, I'm the new leader of the Hand. And as such, I kind of wanted to mess around with you just a little bit, but I'm not going to be here for long. After all, they're working on reviving your brother. And, Wolverine, he's just like, Victor, they're going to revive Victor. And he says, yes, Victor Creed's already, trying to make his comeback. He'll be back very soon. And when that happens, I'm gone. However, if you wish to hire me, I could go ahead and stop it. My fees are about, let's see, $1 billion Canadian. And, Logan, he's just like, you think I got that much money? And he says, you don't, the kid does. And he says, you leave the kid alone. I have to fix your mess. And, Deadpool's just like, well, you know how to find me. I'll be on my way out of here. Bye. And he just walks out, but he slaps Wolverine on the ass before he does. And Logan just growls at him, and Deadpool's like, ooh, scary, and runs off. And there's like, who was that? And Bakugo says, I'm guessing that was Deadpool. And, Logan says, yes, a pain in my ass. That's what that was. And, Logan, he sees Deku's pretty much killed Nomu. He's ripping at its intestines, dragging it out as he slashes the Nomu's head off and rips its brain out. And the Nomu, it stops moving. No more regenerating. None of that. It's dead. Logan says the kid's gonna start coming up here now. With nothing else to kill, only one way to knock him out of this. And they're like, what's that? He's like, you gotta inflict enough pain where he remembers who he is and where he's at. And Logan tells them, don't get in my way. I'm the only one that can do this. As he pops his claws. And he tells the rest of them, get out of here. And he says, X-Force, you stay. And, the class is just like, what? X-Force? As he looks at Kirishima, still bleeding. He says, Create, wrap him up with bandages, stop that bleeding. We're going to need him more than anyone else. He says, Froppy, you're with me. And Aizawa, he's confused. And, they say, yes, sir. And they fall in. Momo, he, wraps up Kirishima, stops his, bleeding. He goes down there with Wolverine and Asui. Asui, she's hitting him and jumping away. She's playing pretty much just hit and run with, Deku while he's fighting tooth and nail with Wolverine. And, Wolverine's tearing into him. He's tearing into Wolverine. Logan knows he can't take all of, Deku's punishment because Deku's younger than him. His healing factor's better than him. His claws are sharper than his. And he's a lot more pissed off than Logan is. So, yeah, Logan's basically having to use his experience with all of his battles to kind of combat Deku. And he's getting the better of him. Like, he's countering him. And with Kirishima there, he jumps in to kind of block for Logan and allows Logan to really just hit him into the head. And eventually, Deku wakes up and he's not feral anymore. And he's like, what happened? Where am I? As he looks around, he sees a pile of corpses everywhere. He's like, what did I do? And, Logan hugs him and he says, this wasn't you. It's not your fault. Kirishima says, yeah, don't worry about it, man. You didn't do this. And he says, if I didn't, who did? And Asui and Momo come down there. Momo hugs him. And she just says, someone made you go feral. They're responsible for this. It's on their hands. As Deku looks down at his bloodied hands and he says, it's on mine too. And Momo just sees him crying. He's like, I didn't want to be a murderer. And, Logan tells him, these were criminals. You didn't hurt anybody. As he looks at Kirishima, and he says, I'm pretty sure I did. As Kirishima tells him not to worry about it. He's Colossus. Scratch like this, it won't keep him down. As, Deku kind of just chuckles. Him and Kirishima, they share a bro moment. Nice bonding type deal. As they all exit and Aizawa demands answers. So, Deku, Kirishima, Asui, and Momo show off their official hero licenses, making them the same rank as Aizawa. And Aizawa's just like, what the hell is going on? And Deku tells him, we're X-Force. We're a covert operations unit. If Wolverine deems it necessary for us to go out on a mission, we go. He's our handler. And, Aizawa says they're kids, Logan. They're inexperienced. They don't know what the hell's going on. And Logan points down there. He says they got combat experience under their belt. They fought villains. They're qualified. As far as I'm concerned, the rest of these piss ants, they're not in the same league. And Aizawa says, that might be true. But are you still going to have them compete in the sports festival? And Logan tells him, you're damn right I am. And he says, that's unfair. You're putting pros against students. And he says, a minute ago, you were complaining that they weren't qualified to be pros. But now that they're competing, you think, oh, it's okay for them not to. And he says, technically, only non-pro heroes are allowed to participate. And Logan says, fine, they won't participate in the sports festival. And he says, however, they will have a place to show off. And, he's just like, whatever. And Deku's just like, what do you mean? Logan says, I'm going to set up a special match for X-Force versus, a few people that win the sports festival. And he's like, okay. So, since they're pros now, they have to sit out. They don't need to go through the whole internship program, which means none of them do. And as for who gets All Might's quirk, Mirio does. Mirio has, One for All now. He's All Might's successor. And the sports festival, it's there, Throughout all the training, the X-Force mainly just trained together. And, Deku, he did see Bakugo's mom a few more times, but he's pretty much quit that now. He's gotten tired of her. And she's gotten pretty tired of him at the same time, so it's a mutual thing. But, they didn't call it quits soon enough, because Bakugo did walk in on it. And he was pretty mortified. And he hasn't told his dad, because Deku literally threatened him. And Bakugo's keeping a secret. Not one he wishes to, but still one nonetheless. And so, the sports festival comes, and, they're just sitting there watching it, waiting. As people realize, these are UA students. Why aren't they participating? And Deku says, we have a special match we're being saved for. And they're like, wait, what? And he's like, you'll see. So, they get down there, and they're watching. The first place winner of the race, that's Todoroki. Bakugo is a close second. The cavalry battles start, and pretty much, a bit more people get in this time. Like, I want to say, Monoma actually ends up getting in, and Kendo gets in, and just a couple other fodder students get in. And since, Kirishima isn't there to fight Tetsu, Tetsu gets a lot further this time around in the fights. And so by the time the fights go around, you have Bakugo still bodies Uraraka, and Uraraka has even less confidence now since she's not interacting with Deku as much. Tokoyami, he gets even further since he fights Monoma and eliminates him. And Kendo, she gets further. I'm gonna say she actually ends up getting the better of someone. So she proceeds a little bit further. And Todoroki, he still Ice Ages Sero to hell and back. And Deku, he remembers seeing a file on Iceman, and he's like, that guy could be Iceman. And, Momo says, he has a flame quirk too, right? And Deku's like, the dude's got two? Badass. Iceman and Pyro. There you go. And she's just like, no. And Deku's like, what? He'd be a good guy for the team. She says, he's not a team player. And Deku says, and I am? Kirishima says, yeah, dude, you're way more of a team player than that guy. And Deku says, alright. So, in the matches, Bakugo, he wins first place overall because Todoroki's not using his flames. And that actually boosts Bakugo's confidence up. He's like, yo, I'm actually first place. Nice. Todoroki wins second, and I'm gonna say that Tetsu, he actually wins third. He beats Tokoyami. But Tokoyami beats Kendo. So, the placements for the top four are Bakugo, Todoroki, then you have Tetsu, and Tokoyami. And, Shinzo, he was there, but he didn't get all that far when he had to fight Tokoyami. And Tokoyami's not really the one to answer questions. So, yeah, that's why Shinzo's not any real higher up. But he sees that Logan's actually talking to that Shinzo kid. And so, they have an announcement. And Midnight's down there. She grabs the microphone with enthusiasm, and she says, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are ready. We have a special matchup prepared for you guys here today, and the matchup is going to be our school's very own X-Force versus the 5 winners of the sports festival." And Deku's like, "Wait, 4v5? Logan walks up and says, "Not quite. 5v5. Shinzo's been accepted into the X-Force." And, Deku's just like, "Welcome. Glad to have you." Shinzo's like, "You're not even gonna ask what my quirk is?" And, Deku pretty much just says, "I don't need to. If Logan says you're good enough for the X-Force, you're good enough for the X-Force." And Shinzo's actually very surprised by that. And Deku says, "After all, I'm the son of a supervillain. Who am I to criticize?" As Shinzo actually, respects Deku a lot for that. And Kirishima's admiring Deku just for owning up to that. As they get ready to enter the field, they're all in their, gym clothes, no hero outfits allowed. As they start walking, and they introduce them one by one. First up, the man who can take a hit and deal one out. X-Force's very own Colossus. As Kirishima runs up into the ring, and he activates his hardening powers, and Tetsu's like, "Hey, you're just ripping me off." As, Kirishima looks right at Tetsu and says, "I don't want to hear nothing from you. You're who I want to beat the most." As Tetsu actually feels honored to be challenged by an X-Force member. He heard about what they did at the USJ. So he's actually pretty stoked to fight Kirishima. And they say, the frog hero, Froppy. And, she gets introduced. They say the newest member of the team, the man of brainwashing, Shinzo. As Shinzo runs into there and, Baku's like, "This loser?" As, Shinzo sees Tokiyami, and he points to him and says, I won't lose again." As Tokiyami, kind of just nods, because he doesn't know if Shinzo's using his power yet or not. It's just Momo and Deku left. And Momo's just kind of frightened. Deku tells her, "Don't be. You got this. We're X-Force." So Momo, she shakes her head, but not before giving Deku a little bit of a kiss on the cheek. Deku finally understands her feelings now, and he's just like, "We'll talk." And Momo says, "Yeah, we're talking. I know what you've been up to." Deku actually starts sweating a little bit, and he's like, "Everything?" She says, "Everything." As Midnight calls out, the creation hero, Creatai, as, Momo runs into the battlefield, and now it's just Deku. He bops his neck, knuckles, as he gets ready. He puts on his game face. As he starts walking, as he can hear Midnight. The very own, infamous hero, the man of animalistic rage, the man of strength, the first and only leader of the new X-Force, Sabertooth. As Deku rushes into the arena, doing an animalistic run and front flips in, landing in front of his team, as they all form rank behind him. And the audience realizes X-Force is a real team, not just students who show potential. This is a deadly combination, a creation hero, a man who is a mutant, the dude who can brainwash people, a hardening dude who can take any type of punishment, and then the agile frog hero. This team isn't one to be messed with. And they look at their opponents and they see only 2 or 3 of them that could potentially put up a good fight, but they're very excited to see this match. the roars of the audience is flaring up. Endeavor, he's watching closely and intently on Deku. He doesn't trust him. Not after what Todoroki told him about him going feral and ballistic. But he keeps his mouth shut, as Logan's right there next to him. And Logan leans over the rails, and he's smiling. And then, the fight starts. And right as soon as this starts, Todoroki tries to just freeze them all. Deku, he immediately just grabs onto the ice and gets to the top of it and rushes towards Todoroki, jumping down almost as if he's like a saber-toothed tiger, pouncing on its prey. As Todoroki realizes he can't make any more ice right now, he reluctantly uses his flames, burning through Deku as everyone sees that he just ignited him. But a split second later, Deku has him pinned to the ground, hand on his face, and boot on his stomach. As Todoroki realizes Deku just healed from it. Everyone looks at him and they see him growing his flesh back as they see the metal skeleton on him. And even Todoroki sees that metal skull of Deku as he heals back to his normal state. He's terrified now. He doesn't know what type of training or experimentation Deku did to get that metal skeleton, but he's not wanting to take any chances. As Deku eliminates Todoroki, Bakugo is fighting Kirishima, as well as, Tetsu. Kirishima is actually getting a little bit overwhelmed, but that's when Asui kind of just kicks Bakugo in the face. And, Bakugo is just like, who in the hell just did that? As Asui just says, me, as she grabs Bakugo's leg with her tongue and throws him. Bakugo realizes he's about to be eliminated, but he's not going to be outdone. He uses his explosions to propel himself back into the ring, but, little to no avail, as Asui comes in there kicking him right back out. Eliminated and humiliated, Bakugo is just like, but I was strong. And Asui says, true, but we're a team. You can't beat us by yourself. As just then, Kirishima clocks Tetsu with a huge left uppercut, knocking him off his feet into the air. Kendo is fighting Momo. She's trying to slap her way around. Momo isn't going down like that. She's avoiding and creating shield projections on her arms, protecting her from Kendo's huge hands, but also dodging them and counterattacking with the shields. As she slams the shield against Kendo's stomach, it knocks her out. And now she's on the ground. Momo just picks her up and throws her out of bounds. However, Shinzo's having a little bit more difficulty because Tokoyami's not going down easy. And so Tokoyami, he's actually just trying to eliminate one of them. He doesn't want to be seen as the weakest link here. So he's wanting to take out their weakest link. But he's about to eliminate Shinzo. That's when Deku jumps right in front, taking the hit for Shinzo. And Shinzo's, shocked. He didn't think that they'd be so quick to take a blow for him. And Kirishima runs over there and right jabs Tokoyami right in the face, knocking him out. And everyone just is amazed. This X-Force, it's a force to be reckoned with. As, Midnight calls match, and everyone's just cheering for them. Even Shinzo's feeling the cheer, as he's just amazed by all this. And, Logan walks back in there, he grabs the microphone, and he pulls Shinzo over there near him. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, I will announce to you right here and now, that Shinzo will be moved from the support course into the hero course and will be part of class 1A. And as I was thinking, his class is full, and he realizes that there's marks against somebody and they were stacking up. So he's pretty much assuming who's gonna get booted out. Shinzo is so happy to hear that he literally starts crying, and Logan tells him, "Go ahead, kid, you earned this." As Shinzo doesn't know what to say, as Deku walks up to him and says, "Let's do our best, alright?" As he puts his hand out there for Shinzo to shake. Shinzo does. And, he has a lot of respect for Deku now, and for Kirishima. They helped him out in his time of need. And Aizawa, he's taken a liking to Shinzo. And he's decided he's going to train him. And as soon as the sports festival's over, they go home. And the next day comes, and Shinzo walks into his class, and people notice Minetta's not here. So Aizawa tells Shinzo to go ahead and take the empty seat. Shinzo does. And he tells everybody, Mineta has been removed from the hero course due to inappropriate behavior with the female students. As everyone kind of cheers when they hear that, mainly the females, as Deku starts sweating a little bit, but he knows Logan would never do him that dirty. And he takes a little bit of a sigh of relief. He's like, whew. But now they have the pressing matter of their internships and training for the X-Force. Because the X-Force people, they're not going to be required to take an internship. Meaning Deku's not going to go to Gran Torino. He won't be there in the Hosu city. So there's going to be repercussions for that. And, Aizawa basically tells Shinzo that he's going to be training him. Even though he's part of the X-Force is going to be at school during those internship weeks. Meaning none of the other first years will be here. So it'll just be those 5 of them basically just on the team training together and working on their teamwork. Shinzo hears that and he's honored. He's honestly overwhelmed with this, like being treated like a big shot already, like an actual hero, as Aizawa hands Shinzo his hero licensing. And Shinzo's like, wait, I just got moved to the hero course. And Deku just speaks up. He says, all X-Force members are required to have a hero license. We've got ours. Now you've got yours. Don't worry if you don't think you deserve it right now. We'll work your way up to it. And Shinzo basically just smiles and he says, thank you. Thank you very much. And Deku just says, hey, easy on the things. We're a team. We don't need those type of formalities. After all, this team's like a family. And, everyone else hears that from Deku. Kirishima jumps in and says, yeah, after all, I need my quirk to be stronger. And I could use my mind to be strengthened as well. And if you need to work on your body, Creed's the best one to help you out with that. Because Kirishima, ever since he's been working out with Deku, he's actually grown in muscle mass 2 whole sizes. So he's a lot more built than he was in canon. So Shinzo's actually very happy to hear all that. And, everyone pretty much goes to their, heroic, internships that they would have. Except for Momo, Asui, and Kirishima, and Deku. They're all still there at school. And while everything's going on, pretty much Deku is training all of them in hand-to-hand combat, and he's their leader, so he's in charge of dictating who does what type of training. So basically he's having Kirishima take hits from him. he's having Momo and Asui practice hand-to-hand combat and maneuverability with agility. And he's having Momo create objects while she's doing it, so that way she could, create something as she fights and not have to wait to create it and then fight. And Shinzo is doing weightlifting workouts and, body weight workouts, and has Aizawa there to teach him hand-to-hand combat and how to fight with the scarves. Also coming up with an idea on how to better use his quirk. So Shinzo actually gets his voice modifier a lot earlier than in canon, and since Hatsumi is very excited to be tinkering on an object for the X-Force, she does it way faster. She just thinks it's great publicity for her to be known as the woman who made a gadget for the X-Force. So, yeah. But even though the X-Force was very publicly, viewed out there, they just think it's a school team. They don't know it's actually full of pro heroes. So, yeah, that's going under the villain's radar. But, that being said, Stain is still a problem. So, while Ida's out there, he does still run into Stain. And Stain kills him. Ida dies. Right then and there. And that is going to be felt all throughout the story from here on out. And the Nomu attacks, they happen. But Stain gets away. And so the whole deal is that Wolverine gets a call about Hosu City. He mobilizes the X-Force. And he tells them, go out there and find the hero killer Stain. He is your priority target, and it's kill on sight. Because someone found Ida's body. And, Hero Agency contacted Logan. He doesn't know about the Nomu, but he's telling them, priority target, Stain. And it's kill on sight. So, the X-Force is loaded into a helicopter, and they're flown out there. They don't have the X-Jet yet, but they will, soon enough. Logan starts dusting off all of Xavier's previous stuff, and he starts decorating that with his office, realizing he's now Professor X, and he has to take responsibility for it, especially since that was one of his students that got killed. But a lot of that blame is going to fall on that pro hero. And, Ida's brother, he's actually going to be feeling a lot worse now that Ida's dead. And, yeah, he won't even want to have the surgery to recover at all anymore. So, Deku, he pretty much just gets there, and he sees it's in hell. He calls up Wolverine on comms, and he says, Logan, we got an issue. There's a lot of Nomu everywhere. And, Logan says, can the pros handle it? He looks down, he says, it looks like they have a handle on things, although some of them are getting their asses kicked pretty bad. Logan says, stay on mission. Stain's a dead man. And, he hears it and he says, what happened? Why is Stain all of a sudden a priority target? And Logan tells him, he killed Ida. He killed one of their classmates. And all of a sudden, for that team, it becomes personal. Especially for Kirishima, because he was actually, kind of friends with Ida. He tells Deku, Stain's his to kill. As Deku looks at him, and Kirishima says, you've already got blood in your hands. This guy killed my friend. I'm getting this kill. Deku says, alright guys, you heard him. Colossus gets dibs on this kill. Everyone else, spread out, find him. And Deku actually picks up Stain's, scent. He radios in on the X-Force channel. He says, X-Force, mobilize my position. I have a lead on Stain, following his scent. And everyone, they start moving in. And Stain's in a back alley, just kind of catching his breath a little bit. And then he's all of a sudden hit with a kick from Asui. He's hit again with a knee from Senzo. And then he's hit again with a punch from Deku as Kirishima literally just grabs him by the face and slams his fist into his throat, killing him. But Kirishima doesn't stop there. He beats on Stain, and so hard that Stain's blood is splattering everywhere. It splatters against Kirishima's hardening hands, as Kirishima can feel the rage, the anger, the animalistic sense he gets from just beating this guy's corpse. He knows Stain's dead, he knows he can't fight back, but Kirishima can't help it. The anger he feels at his classmates, his friend's death, he can't help himself. So he just keeps punching and punching and punching. He screams out, he yells with the rage in his voice, tears falling down his face. They all feel the loss. And Deku stops Kirishima. He says, "Colossus, that's enough." He radios into Logan. Mission accomplished. So he tells them, X-Force, assist all pro heroes in the elimination of Nomus. And he tells them, load the body of Stain into the helicopter. And the helicopter lands on the roof. Deku pretty much just climbs the side of the wall up there to the roof and throws Stain's body into the helicopter. The helicopter closes and leaves. Logan radios into his team. Take the subway station back, he'll reimburse them later. So, they all say affirmative. As they walk in there, taking out any Nomus they can, bit by bit. Shinzo's actually really shining here, taking over the Nomus' minds so they can't fight back. And Deku delivering decisive kills with Kirishima beating their brains in, killing them that way. Momo has created, swords and bladed weapons for Kirishima's to use now, for Asui and for herself, as well as Shinzo. So Kirishima's using bladed brass knuckles now. So that way he really just packs a massive punch. And he's just going through there, like Deku's ripping them to parts. The X-Force is on a killing spree of Nomu. And the television gets a look at him, and Deku growls at them, and he jumps up there to the newscast in their helicopter. He takes the camera and he breaks it. He says, "You don't catch us on the news. Got it? You don't report on us, and you don't say that we were ever here. You understand?" As they say, "Yes, we understand." Deku jumps back down, slamming the camera into the ground and breaking it further. It's shattered. Not a trace of footage left. As for the live stream, they cut it. Right before it shows them, they cut the feed. So, nobody knows the X-Force was there. As they leave, they get on the subway station, and they head home. And Logan, seeing the body of Stain, stabs it with his claws. And he says, "Good riddance." As the X-Force returns to school the next day, Logan tells them the rest of the students still have time on their internships. That doesn't mean they get to take it easy. Congratulations on your first mission being a success. And, he says, you caught him off guard, and you all ganged up on him. That made him weak, that made him defenseless. And you killed him with ease. That's how it should be done. Covertly, no big fights. And Kirishima, he's back, and this time, all of the red is washed out of his hair. It's pure black now. He has his hair down, and he has this look in his eye that's different now. He's not smiling. he has the same look on his face as Deku does. And Logan notices it. He says, "Good job out there, Colossus. First blood's always the hardest. You'll get used to it." And Kirishima says, "Yes, sir." And also he notices that he's acting more and more like Deku. And Deku notices that too. Shinzo's getting a little bit more concerned about being on this team now, asking if he's going to end up like them. Deku says he's only going to allow people to get the blood on their hands that they want. If he never wants blood to get on his hands, he doesn't have to. And, he says, "Thank you." And with that, the incident's done. The following days go by slow. Kirishima and Deku training more and more. And Kirishima starts to notice a mutation in his quirk. His hardening. It's not as choppy or blocky anymore. It's smoother. And it's starting to last longer. Kirishima's pretty concerned about this, so he brings it up to Logan. And Logan tells him, "Have a doctor check you out. Until then, you're not allowed on missions." Kirishima says, "Yes, sir, I'll get it checked out." He goes to the doctor, and the doctor tells him, "Oh, I see. Your quirk. This is interesting." And Kirishima says, "What's so interesting?" And he says, "Well, you know how there's the X gene and there's quirks, right?" And Kirishima says, "Yeah, so what?" He says, "We mistakenly listed you as having a quirk, when in actuality, you're a mutant, and your mutant powers are manifesting now. They're more awake. Previously, it was unrefined, not fully activated. Your mutant powers are coming in more and more." And Kirishima says, "Wait, so I'm actually a mutant?" And he says, "Yes. We're sorry that we labeled you wrong, but since you didn't have that pinky toe, we just assumed." And, Kirishima says, "So, wait, you mean..." He says, "Yes. You're the same as Sabertooth." And Kirishima, he's actually just shocked. They bring that up to Logan. Logan looks at his X gene and he says, "Go ahead, use that hardening power of yours." Kirishima does, and he notices it's getting shinier, almost metallic. And, Wolverine says, "I'll be damned. You really are becoming like Colossus." And just like that, Kirishima's just like, "So what's next?" And Logan says, "Accept it. Just like Creed did. You have to accept these type of things or it's never going to go away." And Kirishima says, "Okay." And they look back through Kirishima's history, and they notice that Kirishima's bloodline is actually from Magic's, Colossus's sister. So all throughout that history, like Kirishima, he's actually related to Colossus. Not directly to him, but by his sister. So Kirishima, he's like, "So Magic is an ancestor of mine?" And Wolverine says, "Yeah, let me tell you, she was a real spitfire. Strong though, but definitely a spitfire." And Kirishima says, "So wait a minute, you're telling me..." And he tells him, "Yeah, it's taken a while, but you're definitely turning into Colossus." And he's just like, "I can't believe it." And he says, well, look at it this way. You're actually your idol. As Kirishima says, yeah. And the doctors say, oh, but you will be able to deactivate it, though. Like, don't get us wrong. Your quirk, well, my bad, your mutant ability will look like Colossus's, but it will still function like it normally would. You will still be able to deactivate it. But it's just going to be stronger from here on out. Kirishima says, good. So, he's actually pretty happy about this. And he goes to tell Deku. And Deku's really happy for him. He's just like, you're just like me. You're a mutant. And, Shinzo's just like, wait, you guys are mutants? And Deku's like, please tell me you don't have anything against mutants. He says, oh, no, I just always thought mutants were cool. I looked up history facts on them. They were actually technically the first quirked people. It's actually amazing how far we've come. And Deku's just like, do you have a mutant that you looked up to? And Shinzo tells him, yeah, kinda. And he says, okay, well, who is it? And he says, this guy named Cable. I really looked up to him. And, Logan tells him, well, kid, how'd you like to meet him? As Shinzo's like, wait, really? Logan says, I'll have to call in a favor. But yeah, besides, I've been meaning to talk to him about Wade. It's time we started tracking down Wade, the Hand, and whoever sent those villains over here to the USJ. You guys are becoming more than ready. So X-Force, from here on out, you'll be assigned missions regularly. And Deku says, we're ready, sir. And that's where I'm going to be leaving it off. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a bit of a longer part, but I just really couldn't help myself on this. And I hope you guys look forward to Cobra later on today. And as always, I am the Crown Clown, and I will see you guys again in the next one. Peace.